Hi everyone, Professor Dunn here again. Let me just current slide so you can see this full screen. There we go. So our next style we're going to look at is called pastoralist style, or sometimes also the cattle style. And this was created by people that were herders and agriculturalists who appeared in the Central Sahara during the early 5th millennia BC or BCE. And the work is pretty striking here if we look at it. We are looking at people over here who are herders, right? Here they're herding. And then this perhaps is some kind of indication of a home or a structure. Some of these images are harder to make out than others. These people arrived to the Central Sahara during the early 5th millennia BCE, and this area is still, we're talking about the area known as Tell-el-Si Nejar, and this is pigment on stone. Okay, so most of the pastoralist art comes from the middle of the 4th millennia BC to the 2nd millennia BC. And then what happened was the Sahara became too dry to support the cattle and the growing of crops. And so the descendants from this area now inhabit what we think is the region of the northeastern part of Africa, because there is still a very strong focus on cattle even in present day. So we're pretty sure they got pushed out of the Central Sahara simply because of the drier area, or how the land was changing. So the next group of people we want to look at are the Berber people. So this falls into a later style and subject. We're moving along quickly through history. And it marks the beginning of what becomes known as the trans-Saharan trade routes. And these have been controlled for thousands of years by a semi-nomadic people called the Berber people, who are still in existence today and are known to live in areas of the Sahara, the Saharan desert even today. And we have images from this time period where they're creating images of chariots, and this is in the area that becomes known as Maghreb. And because of things that we find in their pictures, we're pretty sure that they had contact with the northeast part of Africa and also into Egypt, and this would be during the 1st millennia BC. And by that time period, there had been an increase in the contact with these settled people of Western Africa as well. So let's just look at that. I'll show you a map. So here, this area that's later, this becomes known as the Maghreb area, and it's above the Sahara Desert. So as this part of the desert became, or this part of Africa became drier and drier and became a desert, the people were pushed up above the desert into what at that time period was still a pretty fertile area in this area. And they were able to live there for quite some time then. And then eventually what happens is we have another group of people that takes over this area or emerges as controlling this area. And you've probably heard of them before. They were the Phoenicians. So they settled in a colony that became known as Carthage around 800 BC. And they really ruled this area for a period that culminated with the unification of the entire Mediterranean, surrounded the Mediterranean area, which was eventually unified by the Romans. So Carthage, it was a wealthy commercial city in the northern tip of what is present-day Tunisia. So it was up in this area that Carthage was. Sorry. And it expanded, and it soon found colonies of its own and eventually came to control most of this whole area that is later here that I'm showing you on this map. But also parts of Spain up here. And you can't see the islands well, even, let me see if I move it. If it's not listed. Okay, so this is Sicily here, and also the island of Corsica. So they and Sardinia. So Spain and the islands of Sardinia, Corsica, and Sicily. And the Carthage remain closely linked more towards the Eastern Mediterranean world from which it had come, but there are some distinctive features that cross over into the Berber art as well. So I'm going to show you next, it's a votive slab, which is also known as a stele, and we'll actually look at a few of these throughout the course here. So let me switch this so we can see. So this is a stele with decorations, and from northern Africa, which is today Tunisia. And we have this goddess who is shown in the middle here. And this is dedicated to this goddess Tanichi. And this is the female deity, Tanichi. And it dates to between the 2nd and 1st century BCE, which was from, again, Carthage. And we have a reoccurring theme in this art of triangles at this time period. We find them quite frequently, and they're always associated with the idea of female power, and the power and strength of the females. And we also have a circular here with a rosette in it. It's very symmetrical in the way that it is created here. And we really see the triangular shape coming from the Berber arts. And this is where we get this idea of female presence and power from. So the next thing I want to show you, move along, is we are going to move to the area of Africa that becomes known as Numidia and Mauritania. So this is to the south of Carthage. There was a succession of Berber rulers that consolidated kingdoms known as Numidia. And together they ruled for a long time, and there were many kings and kingdoms which together collectively then became known as Mauritania. And Numidian rulers played an active role in the Punic Wars, the 3 great conflicts in which the upstart civilization of Rome was based in the Italian peninsula, and it challenged Carthage and then dominated power of the Western Mediterranean eventually, right? So we know that Rome ends up taking over this whole area. And we actually can know from history and from writing at this time period that the Berber rulers were very influential in Rome's ultimate victory of the area in 143 BC over the area of Carthage. So what I'm showing you here is a monumental stone tomb of Mauritania and Numidian rulers, which still stands from this period of power of Berber politics, let's say. And this is one of the most famous of the monuments, and it marks the grave of members of the ruling family of Numidia, who died in the late 3rd century BC. This is a really huge structure. It's almost 116 feet in diameter. It's supported on a shallow cylindrical base ornamented with engaged columns, and engaged columns simply mean that they're attached on one side to the wall. They're not freestanding columns. The Numidian tomb resembles description of a tomb of the 4th century BC Greek king Mausolus, who ruled in Asia Minor. His tomb, which has given us the name mausoleum. So this is where we get our word mausoleum from. He was famous throughout the ancient Mediterranean world, and it might have seemed a suitable model for powerful Numidian kings. The interior of this tomb has a chamber similar to those found in Egypt and other areas around Egypt, the pyramids that were created, that we'll be looking at in a week or two. Okay, so I'm going to end this little section of the video. I'll point out though that this is a person right here running, and this is another person and another person and another person. So you can just see the huge size to give you a reference of the size of this. So, it's quite amazing. These people were able to create these very large structures at this time. All right, so I'm going to stop this and I'll pick it up with the next video.